I am holding a single jacket. One jacket, from a brand called Arc'teryx. It costs $550. For that exact same amount of money, I walked onto Amazon and filled an entire cart, a 55-liter internal frame backpack, a 3-season dome tent, a compressed sleeping bag, a foam sleeping pad, and a pair of aluminum trekking poles. Total damage, $128. And I still had enough left over for gas and a steak dinner on the way to the trailhead. Is premium gear 10x better, or is it 10x the marketing? Because here's what nobody tells you. The answer completely depends on where you're taking the gear. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where that line is, and whether you're on the right side of it. We're running for rounds, weight and packability, build quality and materials, real-world waterproofing, and trail ergonomics. Every single claim I make in this video is backed by published spec sheets, industry standards, or verified gear data, not my opinion. Let's get into it. The $128 Amazon kit. Here's what we're working with on the budget side. The Amazon Basics 55-liter internal frame backpack, around $25. Polyester construction, aluminum internal stays, adjustable torso, integrated rainfly. Verified pack weight at approximately 4 pounds empty. That's confirmed by Amazon's own listing and third-party reviews. Next, a basic 3-season dome tent, around $30. 2-pole setup, polyurethane-coated rainfly. Amazon does not publish a hydrostatic head rating for this tent, and we'll come back to exactly why that matters in round 3, because it is genuinely alarming. Rounding out the kit, a synthetic sleeping bag, a closed-cell foam sleeping pad, and a set of aluminum trekking poles, including unbranded zippers and injection mold plastic buckles throughout. We're going to put all of that hardware under real load in round 2. Everything you need to survive a weekend in the backcountry. Total, $128. The $550 Arc'teryx Beta R. Now the challenger. The Arc'teryx Beta AR jacket, currently retailing at $550 in the US. Here are the actual published specs. It weighs about 461 grams, that's just around 1 pound, for a men's medium. The outer shell uses Gore-Tex Pro, a 3-layer laminate with a published hydrostatic head rating of 28,000 mm. The seam allowance is a microscopic 1.6 mm. Arc'teryx calls this a micro seam allowance, roughly the thickness of a standard US quarter. Every single seam is fully taped. Those numbers sound impressive. But do they justify spending more than 4 times the price of the entire Amazon setup? Let's find out. Round 1, weight and packability. The first tax cheap gear charges you is weight, and it charges you on every single mile. The Amazon Basics pack alone comes in at 4 pounds empty. Add the dome tent, typically 2 to 3 pounds for a budget 2-pole setup. A synthetic sleeping bag at this price point runs around 3 to 4 pounds, versus a premium 800 fill-down bag that does the same job at under 2. The foam sleeping pad adds another £1. Conservatively, before you've packed a single gram of food or water, this kit is sitting at 11 to 13 pounds. That matters because in backpacking, the accepted rule of thumb is that your base pack weight, everything except food, water, and fuel, should stay under 20% of your body weight. For a 160-pound hiker, that's 32 pounds total including consumables. Start at 13 pounds of base weight and you're already halfway to your limit before you've packed a meal. Compare that to the Arc'teryx philosophy. The Beta AR alone sits right around 16 ounces. Premium ultralight setups built around that layer, with an 850 fill sleeping bag, a Silnolin tent, and a carbon fiber pole set, can bring base weight down to under 15 pounds total for the entire kit. But, and this is the nuanced part, if you're car camping at a state park this summer, none of this matters even slightly. Weight only becomes a real penalty past about 5 miles of elevation gain. Under that threshold? The Amazon kit is legitimately fine. The weight gap is real. Whether it's your problem depends entirely on where you're hiking. Coming up, the number that changes everything. Coming up in round 3, we're going to look at the waterproofing numbers, and what we found in Amazon's spec sheet, or rather, what wasn't there, is the single most important thing in this entire video. Round 2, build quality and materials. This is where the manufacturing gap becomes visible, if you know what to look for. On the Amazon Basics pack, the construction is polyester throughout. Polyester is a serviceable fabric for casual use, but it has a meaningfully lower tear strength than the nylon used in premium packs. The zippers are unbranded, no YKK designation in the spec listing, and the buckles are injection mold plastic. Under light load, that's fine. Under a sustained 30-pound pack pressing shoulder strap hardware into fabric for 8 miles, you start to understand why premium brands spec their hardware differently. Now compare that to what Arc'teryx publishes about the Beta R's construction. The main body uses 40 denier Gore-Tex Pro fabric. The hood and shoulders, the highest wear zones, and the exact areas where a heavy pack makes contact with your jacket, step up to 80 denier reinforcement. Denier measures fiber thickness, and higher denier means greater abrasion resistance. For context, most casual rain jackets use thinner, less rugged fabrics. Arc'teryx targets reinforcement precisely where it matters most. Then there's that seam allowance spec, 1.6 mm. Standard garment construction runs 12 to 15 mm. Arc'teryx shrinks that down to reduce bulk and weight, and then tapes every single seam with heat-applied waterproof tape. That's not a marketing claim, it's a listed construction spec on their product page. Here's the honest take: for a weekend of clear weather camping, the Amazon kit's build quality is probably adequate. But unbranded buckles and unverified seam construction have real failure modes under sustained load or abrasion, and those failures tend to happen at the worst possible moment. At mile 8. In the dark. 5 miles from the trailhead. Round 3, the waterproofing test. Round 3, waterproofing, the number that changes everything. Okay. This is the round I teased earlier, and here's why it matters. Waterproofing in outdoor gear is measured by something called hydrostatic head, expressed in millimeters. The number tells you how tall a column of water the fabric can hold before it starts to leak through. The higher the number, the more waterproof the material. Here's the published industry context. According to MSR and Cascade Designs, 1,500 mm is generally considered the minimum for a tent rain fly in light rain. For sustained heavy rain or storm conditions, the recommendation is 3,000 mm or higher. Tent floors need even more, typically 3,000 to 5,000 mm, because your body weight pushes standing water upward through the fabric from underneath. Now here's the number for the Arc'teryx Beta AR, 28,000 mm. That is the published, certified rating for Gore-Tex Pro fabric. 28,000. That's not a typo. And the Amazon Basics tent? No published hydrostatic head rating anywhere in the product listing. Amazon describes the Rainfly as a water-resistant, not waterproof. Water-resistant in industry terms typically means a DWR surface coating, which beads light rain but is not a membrane. It has no standardized pressure rating. What does that mean in practice? A polyurethane-coated budget tent Rainfly may perform adequately in light, brief rain. But PU coatings, according to tent fabric guides from major manufacturers, degrade over time with UV exposure. And budget tents at this price point almost never have taped seams. Seam stitching creates needle holes in the fabric, and without seam tape, those holes become water entry points under sustained rain pressure. So, Arc'teryx, 28,000 mm, fully taped, certified Gore-Tex Pro membrane. Amazon tent, no published rating, unverified PU coating, no confirmed seam sealing. If it rains for 6 hours in the backcountry and your sleeping bag gets wet, you now have a genuine hypothermia risk. That is not a marketing claim. That is thermodynamics. A wet synthetic sleeping bag loses the majority of its insulating capacity. If the temperature drops to 45 degrees, which can happen in late summer mountains after sunset, wet sleeping gear stops being uncomfortable and starts being dangerous. This is the single biggest functional gap between budget and premium outdoor gear. Not the logo. Not the look. This. Round 4, Ergonomics and Trail Comfort. The final round is comfort, and this one plays out slowly. For the first 2 miles, the Amazon Basics pack is fine. The shoulder straps are padded, the torso is adjustable, the hip belt transfers some load. Under 20 pounds, most people wouldn't notice anything wrong. But here's what happens past mile 5 under a real load. The Amazon pack uses what's listed as an open-cell foam lumbar pad. Open-cell foam compresses under sustained pressure, meaning that as the miles accumulate, the padding bottoms out and load transfers increasingly to your spine and shoulders rather than your hips. Premium packs use denser, contoured foam and a rigid frame sheet specifically shaped to the lumbar curve. The Arc'teryx Beta AR addresses a different version of the same problem. Budget jackets use flat pattern construction, cut from a flat piece of fabric. Arc'teryx publishes what they called articulated patterning. The panels are cut to follow 3-dimensional human movement. The result is a jacket that moves with you when you reach, climb, or twist, rather than binding across the shoulders and pulling out at the hem. That sounds like a comfort feature. Over a 12-hour alpine day, it's a fatigue feature. Neither of these things is a deal breaker for short trips. Both become relevant very quickly once you're moving over technical terrain with a full pack. The verdict, where the line actually is. So let's actually answer the question. Is the Arc'teryx Beta AR 10 times better than the Amazon Basics kit? On weight, build, waterproofing, and ergonomics, by every measurable spec we looked at, premium gear outperforms budget gear. That is not in dispute. But the more useful question is, does that performance gap matter for you, on your trip? Here's the framework: clear weather, close to the trailhead, under 5 miles. The Amazon kit is genuinely excellent value. The pack carries weight, the tent keeps dew off you, the sleeping bag keeps you warm. You lose nothing that matters for that use case. Overnight backcountry trip, more than 5 miles in, real weather risk? This is where the calculus shifts. Not because of comfort, because of the waterproofing gap. An unrated PU-coated tent in a real storm is a legitimate risk to your sleeping gear, and wet sleeping gear in dropping temperatures is a legitimate risk to you. At this threshold, the minimum upgrade is a tent with a published 3000 mm plus rainfly rating and taped seams. That doesn't have to be Arc'teryx. There are solid mid-range options at $150 to $250. Multi-day alpine or technical terrain. Now you're in Arc'teryx territory, not because of status, but because of certified performance at the spec level. A 28,000 mm hydrostatic head, abrasion-resistant fabric, micro-seam allowances, and taped construction are not luxury features at altitude. They are reliability features. The real rule of thumb: upgrade your rain layer first. If you only have one premium purchase in your gear budget, put it into a jacket or tent with a certified waterproof membrane. Everything else, the pack, the poles, the pad, matters less in an emergency than staying dry. The sweet spot. The gear you need is the gear that matches the terrain you're actually going into. Anything above that is a logo tax. Anything below it is a risk you're choosing to take. Drop a comment: what's your current setup, and where are you taking it? I read everything. And if this breakdown was useful, subscribe. We do this kind of spec level gear analysis every week.